Major support for Out to Lunch is provided by the law firm of Jones Walker, established in 1937 with over 375 attorneys and offices throughout the U.S., providing a comprehensive range of services to a local, national, and international client base. JonesWalker.com. And by Business First Bank, with locations throughout the state, including 11 offices in the Baton Rouge area, providing personal and commercial banking, treasury management, and wealth solution services to help clients succeed. Business First Bank, banking with greater momentum. And by Shewart & Associates, legal recruiters in Louisiana and Texas. And Orange Theory Fitness, delivering fitness results for a healthier world.
From Mansurs on the Boulevard in Baton Rouge, we're out to lunch with editor of the Baton Rouge Business Report, Stephanie Riegel. It's business Baton Rouge style.
Hi, I'm Stephanie Riegel. Welcome to Out to Lunch. Running your own business is a challenge, whether you're a two-man shop or a major industrial contractor. And when your business is part of a franchise operation, there's a whole added layer of complexity that creates opportunities, but can also present certain stumbling blocks. Today, we're talking to one such successful franchisee. He is Ted Kergan, the largest franchisee of Sonic drive-in restaurants in the state of Louisiana. Ted owns 57 Sonic locations in the central and southern part of the state, just a fraction of the more than 150 Sonic restaurants he's developed during his nearly 40-year career. Ted is originally from Detroit and began his career in 1977 as a managing partner in an Alexandria Sonic. He eventually became a partner in the operation with his brother, the late Gary Kergan, who was murdered in 1984. And anyone who's been around Baton Rouge for a number of years know that Ted played a key role in solving that high-profile crime and bringing Gary's killers to justice, though not until nearly 30 years had passed. In the meantime, Ted was growing his company and has been recognized as one of the top franchise outlets in the country. Ted, you have an incredible story as a businessman, as a successful franchisee, and also as a crusader for your brother's cause, which is a whole story unto itself. So it's a pleasure to have you here today on Out to Lunch.
Well, thank you, Stephanie. I'm a big fan of the show, so it's a pleasure to be here.
Wonderful. Well, so many stories to tell, but let's start with the story of Sonic. And it's the biggest chain of drive-in restaurants still in existence, which is rather remarkable, because decades ago, there were so many drive-in restaurant chains, and now there's only Sonic left. So how did Sonic manage to hang on?
Well, Sonic began in 1953 when a fellow by the name of Troy Smith got out of World War II. He had always wanted to own a steakhouse, so he bought a log cabin in Shawnee, Oklahoma, and developed it into a steakhouse. But What happened was, as part of the real estate deal, there was also a root beer stand out front of the steakhouse called Top Hat. And after Troy operated the steakhouse and kept the root beer stand going for about 6 months, he realized he was making more money in the root beer stand than he was in the steakhouse. So finally, he closed the steakhouse down and decided to just kind of develop this root beer stand concept. And a few years later, he got into there was a trademark problem with the name Top Hat. So, and that was about the time he had put in controlled parking with stalls. He'd gotten some jukebox boys, as he called it, to put in the speaker systems for him. And he changed the name to Sonic to kind of represent the fast service. And the rest is kind of history.
And it's grown, and it's now the biggest and most successful one in existence. I mean, really the only one left.
It is, and the key to Troy.
Don't tell me it's because the food is so good.
Well, we certainly like to think so, but the key thing that Troy did was, and that we still do today, is all our managers are equity partners. So Troy never really had employees, and we don't really have employees. We have managing partners. And because of that, I think that those people hung on when during good times and bad times, and while the other competitors in the drive-in business fell off the radar, we were able to survive and thrive.
So it's a good business model. How does the franchise model work exactly?
Well, basically you buy territory, and Sonic went through a period in the late 70s where they were up to about 1,300 stores, and had trouble operating that many stores, and they brought in a fellow from the outside that not only helped organize it, but eventually took it public in '94. And that part of the story is these guys bought Sonic from Troy Smith in '86 for about $13 million, and it's got a market cap of about $4 billion today.
That's amazing.
So it's
That is so great. And so in the midst of all this, you were getting into the business. You started in Alexandria, and
right.
What attracted you to Sonic? And
well, actually, my brother had come down, and we had lived all over the country. We're from Michigan originally, but we were kind of had spent years looking for just the right opportunity. And my brother had come down, had known some guys from Oklahoma, which is where Sonic's out of. And they had come to Louisiana to get in the Sonic business. My brother got in it. He called me to get in it, and I thought it was ridiculous. I didn't want to come down. I wasn't interested. And he kept after me for about almost a year. And, of course, he didn't do very well when he started. But once he became a managing partner of his own restaurant, he started sending me copies of his dividend checks every month. And the other thing that happened was it was 76, and it was the worst winter weather Detroit had ever had in recorded history.
Wow.
And about the end of January, I was ready to come someplace where it was warmer.
that's great. And here you are, all these years later. What locations work for Sonic? I mean, how do you decide where to open one, and what's the key? I mean, I suppose access and the roads have to...
Yeah, that's actually a great question. At the end of the day, we look for the corner of Main Street and Main Street. Mm-hmm. I mean, we look for a combination of where the most people are. We like to say Sonic is a rooftop concept, so we really like to be in the middle of a lot of homes. Mm-hmm. And that's why you don't see us on the interstate as much.
Interesting.
You'll see some of our competitors do well on interstates. We really try to focus on houses.
And why is that?
I think a lot of that has to do with our menu. We have a lot of ice cream and snack items. So we really attract a lot of people that are either on their way home or at nighttime when they want to go out and get a treat.
It's like a treat, yeah. Treat after
well,
school,
it is.
Or a treat at night, definitely.
It is, and an interesting phenomenon is we have restaurants that are in some very high-end areas where there are health clubs, and what we see is, and you might think, well, people aren't going to stop at a fast food restaurant. What we see is that people now actually work out, they try to stay in shape, and they'll reward themselves with ice cream. So it's a really interesting phenomena that's going on.
So Main Street, and maybe next to a health club, right?
You're right.
So who's a Sonic customer as compared to maybe a McDonald's or a Wendy's customers, or is there a difference? I mean, are they really your competition?
Well, in our restaurants, we don't cook anything until you order it. So we really don't consider ourselves a competitor of the folks you just mentioned. We try to kind of position ourselves above a fast food restaurant and maybe just below a quick service. So we try to fit that niche where people, really want high quality food. They want something that's made fresh for them, and they want it quickly. And we can do all that.
And then it's still the drive-in model, which is kind of fun to order on the big board. But have there been any sit-down Sonics or outdoor seating, or people stay in their car?
Well, Stephanie, it's interesting you would ask me that question. There have been, and we're actually developing a inside seater Sonic on Segan Lane right now.
Really?
Yes. It's the building was a McAllister's, and we were able to get a hold of the lease, and we should be open around August or September. So we'll have a combination of inside seating and drive-in and a double drive-through.
Well, there you go. So is this the first hybrid Sonic in this market, or anywhere in the country maybe?
We've actually done a few others in South Louisiana over the years. Mm-hmm. But more recently, as Sonic has been expanding into the north, they've really kind of refined the inside seating part of it. It made some mistakes, but at this point they found what really works well. So this will be a first for really South Louisiana. So we're really excited.
Interesting. And what was the thinking? That people just wanted the option, or that maybe some people come on foot, or?
We try to cater to everybody. So and the building gave us the opportunity to do that. So we're excited.
Excellent. Now, you mentioned the health clubs, and I love this. Have you all segged into the health food segment at all, or any healthier options or lighter fare? Has Sonic dabbled with that, or you in particular?
We have, behind the scenes, really worked on the quality of our food and the cleanness of our food, to kind of segue into what you were just asking me. For years. It's just not something we talk about.
Okay.
For various reasons. But we really think that if we do the right thing, and we've been really working towards this for, I'd say, almost 10 years now, where we've made real improvements in our food, and we think the quality speaks for itself, so we don't go out there purposely and try to broadcast it.
So what does your business day look like? What do you do? 9 to 5,
Stephanie, we have about 2,000 employees.
Wow.
And a number of those are, so about 60-ish are managing partners and managing supervisors. And and we are open from 6 in the morning till 10 at night, 362 days a year.
Wow.
So my day is different every single day. There's, the great thing about my job is we get to develop people, and we develop people through our system into our managing partners. So the really exciting thing for me, and if you look at our managing partners, I think 74% of them came up through the system. So we have people that started as car hops, and we have college-educated people too.
Sure.
So don't get me wrong. But we have people that started as car hops, never expected to have a job probably much better than working at Walmart, and now they're are managing partners of our businesses. So
That's great.
And do very, very well financially.
That's really
so it's a fun job, and I love doing it every day.
You're listening to Out to Lunch. I'm Stephanie Riegel. I'm talking to Ted Kergan of Sonic Drive-In Restaurants. Ted, tell me about the challenges of developing your workforce. I mean, I know particularly with some of the entry-level and lowest wage positions, I'm sure Sonic, like everybody that I talk to in South Louisiana, has trouble finding and retaining, competent workers. Has that been an issue for you, and how do you address that?
Well, I think that, times change and the workforce changes, so there's no denying that happens. I also think, though, that generally I think kids get a bad rap. I think that there's a lot more really good kids than there are challenging kids out there, and but like so many other aspects of our society, I think the ones that are challenging get the most attention, and the good ones just don't get that attention. Mm-hmm. So I'd have to say overall, I think there's a lot of good kids out there, and there's a lot of good kids that are entering the workforce. It is a challenge because there's a lot of places that anybody can go work. And certainly not just Sonic. There's a myriad of places, but I think it forces us to be better, and it forces us to run the kind of business where people want to come to.
So I mean, you have an easier time hiring, say that. I mean, I talk to business owners all the time.
Yeah.
That just can't find, low wage. They have drug issues, and not just kids, but I mean adults, people in their 20s and 30s that. It's a problem with that segment of the workforce.
And it is. And I'm not denying that is. And I'm certainly not denying that we have those problems. And look, sometimes we have problems with people that, end up, that they can't work for us anymore. And, and a phenomenon I find in my business, I don't think other people have, is people come back. And they might come back 5 years later after they've grown up a little bit, or that they've found a way to handle whatever problem they've had, and now they're successful. So, I think it forces us to be better business people, to run the kind of shops that people want to come to work at. And Stephanie, look, there's a lot of places you can go to work, but how many places can you go to work where you can be a car hop, you can roller skate all day long, and you make tips? I mean, so financially, some of our people, and especially the servers and the car hops, do remarkably well.
Have you ever encountered or hired some who can't roller skate? Is roller skate training part of
Every
the
day. No, we don't require that. First of all,
can they walk? Or are they all on skates?
No, they can walk. Yeah. Yeah,
That's
we
fun.
like them to be on skates, but the market for how many people can do the job really well, and
On
then
wheels.
to say, oh, and by the way, yeah, you have to roller skate. You just really narrowed down the number of people you can hire.
That's
so,
great.
yeah.
Well, let's switch gears for a moment, because this is a
Sure.
part of the show we call Another Great Idea. And so maybe you've got a friend who's always got a great idea for you, telling you about a job to apply for, or somebody you should have a cup of coffee with, or a great investment opportunity you should jump on, and maybe you take the advice and it turns out to be great, or maybe it turns out to be a disaster. Maybe you dismiss the advice and you later wish you hadn't. Can you think of an example like that, and how did it turn out?
Well, my great idea was more of an experience. And what happened to me, Stephanie, is when I was raised by a single parent. My father died right after I was born. And my mother took care of myself, and my brother, and my sister, who were all babies, by being a seamstress in our house. And around the time I was going to high school, she just couldn't do that anymore. So she sold our house, she put some money together, and she started looking for a business to buy. And for whatever reason, and I'm like 14 and 15 at this time, she decided to haul me around while she looked at these business opportunities. And I think part of it was she just didn't want to go by herself.
Sure.
And what happened was I just became really enamored with how business worked, how these franchises worked, how, so at 14 I was reading a P&L statement and giving my mom advice. Now, I don't know if I had any advice to give, but, so with my son, who's now 17, I've tried to do the same thing with him. Like, for years now, I've taken him to bank meetings and taken him to conventions and taken him, so he could get as much experience as possible, and he's starting to turn into an entrepreneur. So I think the advice is, to me, just keep your eyes open. There's so much going on, and there's always so much opportunity, but you just have to, I think you have to be like a tuning fork. You have to tune yourself into to be able to recognize those things when you see them.
Yeah, that's great advice. And is your son interested in following in your footsteps with Sonic, or maybe going in his own entrepreneurial direction?
My son is interested in a whole lot of things, and I'd be thrilled if he does come into the family business. I also want, above all else, for him to be happy. So I'm trying to give him enough freedom where he can, find his own way. And if it turns out this is it, that's great. If it's not, that's great too.
That's wonderful. Well, you have such an interesting side story. In addition to your business success, your brother's murder has been such a huge and tragic part of your life, and yet you played such a key role in bringing his killers to justice. And for 30 years you fought that fight, thinking you knew who it was, but not being able to prove it, and law enforcement didn't believe you.
That's true. I think the law enforcement knew who it was. We were able to establish that fact really early on, and really, Stephanie, within a matter of days after the murder occurred. What happened was, and this is, my opinion.
Yeah.
So, but what happened to me was I felt like at the time I got caught up in kind of a political situation with the first district attorney was O.C. Brown, and O.C. was actually on his way out of office. But so this happened in November, which was right at the end of OC's term, and OC was, very much behind it. He agreed. We had circumstantial evidence because, we never got my brother's body and still haven't. And I felt like as OC left office and the new DA, who was Brian Bush at the time, came on, that Brian just. I felt like Brian was more interested in easy cases than doing the right thing. And he said because there was no body, which incidentally is not a law in Louisiana. You don't have to have a body, but I just think that the case presented some challenges that Brian didn't think that he could live up to.
And so how did you keep this alive for 30 years and keep it on the front burner without letting it consume your life and hurt your business and your family relationships and all that? Because it could go either way, you can imagine.
Stephanie, I don't know that I've really did anything that someone else in my position wouldn't have done. I mean, my brother was the most important person in my life. He was clearly my best friend. He was my confidant. And one day he disappeared. Just gone. And to people that hear the story, my challenge is, well, what would you do if the most important person in your life just vanished?
Yeah.
I set out to find him, and to some degree, I guess I'm still looking for him. But I know that my brother wouldn't have given up on me. And that's just not the way we're put together. So I just wasn't ever willing to give up on him.
And all the publicity and national attention, did that help, or did that hurt? Was it difficult to have to relive it all the time?
It was. That's an interesting question. It was. When it's part of your life every day, I don't think you think in terms of is it difficult or is it not difficult. It's just what it is. And it's just the way your life is. In really an instant, my entire life changed. My business changed. My personal relationships changed. It's hard to describe to somebody without saying it's like walking through a portal into another dimension, and nothing is like it was the day before, and nothing will ever be like it again. I think that ultimately all of the media attention was good because it not only kept it alive with me, but it kept it alive in a lot of people in law enforcement that felt like justice wasn't done 30 years ago, and they hadn't given up on it. I mean, if you keep, one thing you have to think about is that the district attorney's office did say back in '85 that if they got a chance that that they would find a way to prosecute the case. And it took 30 years, and it took a DA, Hill or Moore, that took a difficult case because it was old. It was a cold case. There was evidence that was difficult to find. Thanks. And and it took a lot of courage from the DA's office to prosecute the case. And I really give Hiller a lot of credit, and I give the police a lot of credit. There were a lot of people that were involved in '84 that were still involved in the case today. In fact, the majority of the people.
Yeah. Did you get support from the Sonic organization, from your, partners in the businesses, from your employees, or was it hard to stay focused on business?
I got to tell you, it was. If I didn't have the kind of partners and managing partners that I had, we would be having a completely different conversation, and maybe not having a conversation today. I mean, they really stepped up to the plate, and to their credit, my brother was really the leader of our organization. I was much more the nuts and bolts guy. My brother really had the relationships with everyone. And, after a few days, they kind of shook it off and realized that we had to put our heads down and we all had to, work together, and that, there was, a lot of media attention to it, some good and some not so good. And just they were going to have to put their heads down and persevere, and they were able to do that.
You've been recognized as one of the most successful franchisees in the Sonic operation. What is the key to that? How does one become a successful franchisee?
Wow, not to sound really canned, but I just think that you really have to care about people, especially in a franchise organization when you have a lot of people. Part of my success is corporate also. The guys that bought the Sonic business from Troy Smith still run it today, which is really unusual, especially in the food business.
And when did they buy it from him? Back in the 70s?
They bought it in '86.
Okay.
And the kind of lead guy on that left when it went public. But the real nuts and bolts guy that put it all together is a fellow by the name of Cliff Hudson. And Cliff is still the CEO of Sonic. He has really put together a great organization. And if someone has time, it's an interesting story to look at Cliff, look at his management. He has a lot of females in management. He's really built a company of what other companies are trying to get to, but they can't quite figure out how to do that.
Excellent. Well, Ted Kergan, you are the epitome of the entrepreneur, and your drive and determination have proven so key to your success, both in the fast food industry and in getting to the bottom of a very deep, dark, and personal family mystery. So it's been a pleasure to have you here today, and thank you for sharing your very moving story with me on Out to Lunch.
Thank you, Stephanie. It's been a pleasure.
My guest today on Out to Lunch has been Ted Kergan of Sonic Drive-In Restaurants. The producer of our show is Grant Morris. Our technical producer is Eric Merle. Our associate producer is Peter Raschuti. And our Baton Rouge business consultants are Charlie D'Agostino and Ann Edelman. If you want to know what we all look like, you can find photos from this show on our website, it's batonrouge.la, and on our It's Baton Rouge Facebook page. You can hear this show and past episodes of Out to Lunch wherever you get podcasts and at itsbatonrouge.la. Out to Lunch is a production of INO Broadcasting for its batonrouge.la and WRKF 89.3 FM. I'm Stephanie Riegel. Thanks for joining me. I look forward to meeting you again next week around the table here at Mansurs for more business Baton Rouge style on Out to Lunch.
Out to Lunch is recorded live over lunch at Mansurs on the Boulevard in Baton Rouge. Mansurs is open for lunch daily from 11 to 2, for dinner nightly, and for brunch on Saturdays and Sundays. Mitchell Foreman wrote and performs all the music on Out to Lunch. Mitchell's music is available wherever great jazz is sold or streamed, and at mitchellforeman.com. Major support for Out to Lunch is provided by the law firm of Jones Walker, established in 1937 with over 375 attorneys and offices throughout the U.S., providing a comprehensive range of services to a local, national, and international client base. JonesWalker.com. And by Business First Bank, with locations throughout the state, including 11 offices in the Baton Rouge area, providing personal and commercial banking, treasury management, and wealth solution services to help clients succeed. Business First Bank, banking with greater momentum. And by Shewart & Associates, legal recruiters in Louisiana and Texas. And by Orange Theory Fitness, delivering fitness results for a healthier world.